Hello, this is Billy Core from the Carolina Circle Mall Wiki. Today is Friday, January the 3rd of 2014. First real video of 2014 on my channel. Again, thank you everyone for supporting me throughout 2013. It was pretty much the biggest year so far on my YouTube channel, mostly thanks to this little bad boy here. And speaking of well, we might be speaking of sneezing in a second here. Look at the light, Billy. Look at the light. Okay, I'm good, I think. It's false alarm. But I've, ever since yesterday, I've been, streaming some old episodes of the Computer Chronicles here on my, Asus Transformer book. All from the early to mid-90s, mostly mid-90s. And it brought back a lot of memories for me about the 90s, but mostly, now of course I'm always thinking about the 90s obviously, but I got to thinking more along the technology end of things back in the 90s. You know, I remember the excitement, the pure excitement that not only did I have, but my family had when my dad brought home our Packard Bell Legend 822 CDT from Best Buy in his white 1995 Honda Accord V6, which happens to be a very rare model car nowadays. He brought home the Packard Bell, and I was sick, of course. I've told this story seems like millions of times now, but as you know, I was sick that day, and I remember peeking in to watch my dad hook the computer up in the dining room, and I thought that was the most amazing thing ever. And I wasn't the only one that thought that as well. It was just so exciting, and seeing the desktop of Windows 95 for the first time. There's nothing else like that, and there's more to that as well. The whole computer experience and technology experience back then was a lot different, in my personal opinion, than it is nowadays. I mean, nowadays everyone is camping outside their local Apple store waiting for the newest iPhone or the latest iPad, and everyone's keeping a good, close, careful watch on Android and their cell phones, or smartphones I should say, and their tablets. And don't get me wrong, I can't live without my Galaxy S3. But the fact of the matter is that despite all these advances in technology, even today, it still can't compete with how it was 20 years ago, at least. It seemed like when I was watching those episodes of the Computer Chronicles, seeing all this technology that was first coming out 20 years ago, some of it made it big, like Windows 3.1, Windows 95 obviously, the Macintosh computer, IBM and all that stuff. Obviously all of that wound up becoming very mainstream, and pretty much all of that is still around to this day. But the fact of the matter is that there was also some stuff that never really hit the scene. I remember I was watching an episode just now of Computer Chronicles from 1994, and they had a PCMCIA adapter for a laptop that I thought was just incredible. You know, we all know PCMCIA. That they made, it was a standard for laptops for a very long time. They even still make them to this day, to a lesser extent, but cards typically look like this. This particular one is a D-Link Ethernet adapter. It just slid into the side of a laptop, and it would give you expanded functionality. It was kind of like the laptop equivalent of a expansion slot on a desktop computer, you know, like ISA and PCI like we have today. But anyway, they had this thing. It was a PC MCIA card, and it was pretty much a hard drive. Yes, it was. I saw the video of it on Computer Chronicles. It was the bottom of the PC MCIA card, or it may have been the top. You could there were actually full-fledged disk platters in here for a hard drive, and it was. I'd never seen anything like that. Obviously, it never really caught on because I don't remember seeing one until 2014, some 20 years later, after all the hype was over. And like I said, a lot of this stuff made it, a lot of it didn't. Now, for me personally, one of my fondest memories of computers in the 90s was simply shopping for computer games. Back then, it wasn't like it is today. Nowadays, you can log on to Steam and all that kind of stuff, and you download all your computer games now. Or software in general. It's all downloadable content these days. And I know you can, I normally I don't download games anymore, actually. Actually, I never have, but I've said this before, I'll say it again. Computer games just don't interest me anymore. Modern ones, it is. Too much violence, too much shoot 'em ups, but I digress on that. But back then, you had to go to a store to buy software. And I remember going to places like CompUSA in Greensboro, and even Best Buy. And you'd go to the software section, and the number of titles they had was just endless. They had everything under the sun, from operating systems to games to desktop publishing, that kind of stuff, and pretty much any application you can think of. And back then, when you bought software, it was a big deal, especially by looking at the size of the box. Nowadays, for the very, very few things you can find on physical media, the software box will probably be about size of this VHS tape, maybe a little bit bigger, of course, but not much. But it won't even have much documentation to it either. Maybe just a tiny little card and then the DVD. But back then, it was a huge deal to buy software. Take for instance, look how big this. Okay, don't move, there we go. Take for instance this copy of Windows 95. Now I'm not going to show you what's inside because it's still sealed and mint in the original packaging, and I'd like to keep it that way, but this feels a little bit heavy because there's actually booklets in here. There's a quick start guide, warranty card, possibly even a catalog of Microsoft products, and of course the CD-ROM itself. And of course there was also floppy disk versions of this as well, so you can imagine that there's even more in that, as well as it's a lot heavier. And the excitement back then of bringing a new computer game home to try on your computer. And I also remember the excitement of getting one from surprise, because a lot of times my dad would buy me software and computer games while I was at school, and when he'd pick me up from school, he'd reach next to him between the driver's seat and the door, and he'd just hand me software. And that's how I wound up with my copy of Fatty Bear's Birthday Surprise, and that's the exact same copy I'm using right now on this computer. I'm not going to take it out of the CD-ROM drive because, well, let me just say this, Windows in 1995 and even in 2014, Windows of any version has always been very, very unforgiving when it comes to removing any type of media while it's still transferring files. So yeah, I got off on a tangent again, but I was at Best Buy the other week, just looking around, and I noticed that they moved the software section, and there's nothing there anymore. It's just one tiny little row with just a couple of titles, and I think one of them was like Photoshop. I think another was some kind of DVD creator, that kind of stuff, and nothing exciting whatsoever. It's whereas in the 90s, the software section was just rows and rows and rows of awesomeness. Well, now in 2014, it's just been downgraded to just one tiny little row of a couple of cheap titles that nobody really cares about. So it's kind of sad to think that it's just not as exciting as it was back then. And even today, when Apple's coming out with new iPhones every few months, and memory's getting bigger and prices are getting bigger too, it's just, the excitement's just not there anymore, in my opinion, and I kind of miss those days. I know things have got to change, but I just miss the days when you could go into a computer store and just get lost in there, because there would be so much cool stuff to look at. The computers, the software, the hardware, the peripherals they would have on display. It was just phenomenal, and I just miss those days. It was just very, very awesome. But I really ought to get to bed now, so this is Billy Core signing off on January 3rd, 2014. Good night.